My name is Alison Ward. I am a person who likes to share my story of awakening. It was a vicious knife attack by my ex-partner who I'd left in front of my 2-year-old little boy, and that was 29 years ago. So when I met, I was actually with someone else, and this was something that I felt incredibly guilty about, but it was literally fireworks. And I left my existing partner and started having a relationship with. That wasn't a normal thing for me to do, I might add. I'm normally very honourable, but I wasn't honourable at the time. I've got to put my hands up. We had a relationship that moved very, very quickly, but I did see red flags. But me being me, very naive, I decided to see beyond them and give them the benefit of the doubt because I didn't want to be judgmental. Then, when I decided that actually the red flags were absolutely glaringly obvious, I decided I was going to finish with him, and I was plucking up the courage to finish with him when my phone rang, and it was him telling me his mum had just had a heart attack and died. So I didn't want to add to his upsetting day by saying, by the way, we finished. So I then supported him through that, and then the red flags showed themselves again. So I was going to finish with him again, but then I found out I was pregnant, and I was told I wouldn't be able to get pregnant due to some gynae issues I had. So then, me being brought up with the belief from my parents that if you have a child, you stay together, you've made your bed and you lie in it, all those old-fashioned cliches, that was part of my imprint, that was part of my belief system. So I felt it was my role, my job, to make a go of it. So I tried and tried and tried, and then I had to leave in the middle of the night one time because he'd come home from the pub, which was a regular thing. He very rarely came straight home after work. He came home this one time. Obviously, Sam, the baby, was in the cot asleep, and I've had a real heavy day with the baby, been crying, colicky, he was a newborn. And he came upstairs and said, "Get him up, I want to play." And with that, he grabbed him out the cot, opened the bedroom window, and it was winter's night. He just dangled him from the window, and I had to talk him to give him me back. And I just had to listen to my intuition this time rather than ignore it. Talk to him to give it me back all the time while I was thinking, how am I going to get out of here? So I knew where my car keys were. I knew where the nappy bag was. I talked him round. I held the baby, Sam, and then I just ran for it, got in the car, drove to my parents, and they was like they were expecting me. I lived with them for a while, but then, as an abuse person often does, I went back. I kept thinking it must have been something I did. Was I not a good enough cook, a good enough mum, a good enough cleaner, a good enough partner? So I went back again, and then I left again. And I think I went back one more time until I finally left. And then with that, I got myself a little house, a job. I got a nursery place for Sam, and I started to build a good life for myself. One friend of mine, she said to me, "You need to start coming out." And I said, "No, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in meeting anyone." Not only that, I didn't earn much money, so I didn't have much disposable income to go out. And I was thinking it was a waste of going out when I could, use it for a book for Sam or food or so. But she persuaded me. We went out this one Sunday, and there were lots of other people at this place. It was like a pub, but it had a lovely big area where kids could play, and it was a really lovely community. And people weren't getting drunk; they were just chatting. And while I was there, my now husband was there. We hadn't said a word to each other, but we just held hands under the table. I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. He'd been separated from his wife for about a year. In 6 weeks' time, he was due to go on his motorbike with a friend all around Europe for 10 weeks. We really connected on a very deep level. So what we decided to do, we said, look, let's just see each other for 6 weeks. You go off on your trip to Europe. If we still feel the same when you come back, let's just pick it up. So the 4th of July, Independence Day, was the day that he was due to travel. And on the 5th of July, the day after, I was very on edge because while I'd been seeing Wayne, my now husband, I'd been getting phone calls. Now, this was before we had mobile phones. So this was the old-fashioned house phone. I'd been getting phone calls saying, "Watch your back, you're dead." As well as that, I was having nightmares about being beaten up and stabbed by my ex. Unbeknown to me, Sam, my young boy, who was only 2.5, had also been getting nightmares. So I didn't know whether to say anything to my parents or my sister. I didn't want to worry them because I knew they were worried anyway. So I went to the police and they just said, look, you can't do it. You can't do anything about it. You can't prove he was calling you, even though I knew it was him. The stalking laws that we've got in the UK now weren't around then. So basically, I was like a sitting duck. I'd found out that he was working in another part of the country in a restoration job. So I was really relieved that he wasn't going to be in the area that I lived in whilst Wayne had gone off to Europe. So I thought maybe I can rest a bit. But, all day I was on edge, totally on edge. I had a sicky feeling in my stomach. My gut was just churning over. I just had this foreboding. And I went to work and I kept saying that something's not right. And then I started cooking Ari. We didn't go to the park after nursery because I was shattered. So I hadn't slept the night before. So I just thought, I'll make a spaghetti bolognese, we'll have a dinner and I'll go to bed at the same time, Sam. And at 5:15, the doorbell rang and it was standing there. Now he should have been 200 miles away. So I checked out how he looked, how he appeared to look. He looked clean. I couldn't smell alcohol. So I thought, okay, what's he doing here? And he said, I've come to talk about Sam. And I thought to myself, hallelujah, he's going to stand up to being a decent father for a change, because he didn't turn up when he said he would. He didn't give us any money. He just was not being a good father. So we had a tiny little hall at the time and the kitchen was to the left. I went into the kitchen, I turned off the spaghetti bolognese, walked into my tiny little lounge, tiny. Sam ran up to him and, as I say, just pushed him away, totally ignored him. So the alarm bells were going off. I was thinking, what on earth is going on here? He then turned to me and he said, today's the day you're going to die. I found it all. And with that, he pulled a knife out of his back pocket and he headbutted me twice, which my lip just split open. He got me to a corner of a room and he straddled me. So I was straddled in this corner and I couldn't get out. And with that, he just stabbed me. They reckon it was about 7 times. So he was stabbing at my chest. What I did to sort of stay alive, in my head, I was thinking hickory dickory dock, which was bizarre, but that's what I did. And I was putting my leg up to my chest to protect my chest because that's where he was stabbing me. Unbeknownst to me, that the main stab mark in my leg just missed the main artery. That nearly killed me, but it didn't, thankfully. Now, this was what incredible. And a lot of people don't believe this, but I swear this is the truth. Even though Sam was 2.5, he was trying everything he could to try and stop this from happening. So he brought my glasses up to me that I used to watch TV with and drive the car with. He jumped on Graham's back and I was sort of saying, get off his back. I didn't want him anywhere near Graham because I didn't want him to get stabbed. And then he also brought his little dressing gown cord that used to sit in his eye when he was going to sleep like this, when kids do things like that with a blanket. He brought that next to me. He really tried so hard to protect me. And then I left my body and it was wonderful. It was just, I often say the feeling you get is the feeling you had when you have your first child, but it's even deeper and greater, the love that I had in this experience of leaving my body. And I saw all these people that I recognised, pictures of them side to side. And then I saw this triangle of lights, and at the front of the triangle was my granddad that Sam was named after, and he looked so well. He was younger than I remember him looking. I was getting closer and closer to him, and I was thinking, I'm going to be able to give him a hug in a minute. And then this very old-fashioned Birmingham accent, that's where I'm from in the UK originally, said, it's not time to go yet, Duck. And with that, I was back in my body, facing and the bloody mess of a room. There was blood. Oh, God, it was awful. There was blood everywhere. Sam was clearly distressed in the corner still. But what was bizarre, I looked at him in the eyes and I said, what would your mum do if she saw you doing this to me and Sam? And with that, he let out a really strange animal noise and moved back. God knows how I did it, but I was able to jump over him. Bear in mind, I had a big hole in this left leg. I was able to jump over him, scramble for the door. I ran out. I was in fight or flight. I left my little boy in the room, which I felt terribly guilty with for years. So I ran down to a little shop that was just 30 seconds away. They saw the state I was in. They called the police, they called the ambulance. But taken Sam, kidnapped him, put him in a car, and was driving the wrong way. It was now rush hour. It's coming to 6 p.m. So he was driving the wrong way down the main busy road, just a few miles from Birmingham Centre. So you can imagine it was heaving with traffic. At the time, the call went out by the police to say what had happened. And this newly qualified police officer, rather than reacting, she stopped. And she just said to herself, where would I go if I thought I'd killed my ex? Because he must have thought I was really poorly, because obviously all the stabbings and the beating up that I had. And she went to this place that was on the outskirts of Birmingham. And a member of the public said to her, There's a man acting really weird behind there, and he's got a kid in the car with him. And he'd apparently previously bought a pipe, and he'd attached a pipe to the exhaust. And obviously, carbon monoxide was pouring into the car, and was holding Sam like that. And at that time, Sam's back was arching, which apparently means he's just about to OD on carbon monoxide. The police asked him to release Sam, and he wouldn't, so they had to smash the window, took Sam out, arrested. And that's when the rest of the trauma happened. The after effect was a living nightmare. The first thing was, my belief system had been smashed to smithereens. I didn't know who to trust. I had to go and live with mum and dad because mentally I wasn't in the right frame of mind to look after Sam. I had PTSD, Sam had PTSD. Quite frankly, the police and the judicial system were shocking. The way I was treated was appalling. The way that people just judged that, I must have been, a woman who was loose with her affections, or I must have deserved it. I mean, one woman said to me, I can understand why he did it to you, but why did he do that to Sam? And I said to her, well, could you tell me why he did it to me? Because I honestly don't know. When I left hospital, the police phoned my dad to say that I had to go in to give blood at the police station. Unbeknown to me, he was in a cell still in that police station. And when I went round to give blood, he could taunt me from his police cell. Was put on bail, and he could go and stay in Brighton, which was a couple of 100 miles away. He could stay with his brother. He wasn't allowed to come into my area, but he kept coming into my area to go to his local pub. Police did nothing. So I then had to go to a safe house because I didn't feel safe in my own home, my parents' home. It was shocking on so many levels, because I'd always felt if I was a good, kind person and I did good, kind things, then that was the way to be. If I'm honest, if I'm truthful, if I'm kind. Yes, okay, I regretted deeply meeting when I was with my previous partner. That's a regret of mine that I had. But I am trustworthy. I was honest. I was a good person. I worked hard. I was a good mom. So why did something so awful happen? I just couldn't make any sense of it. I didn't even think about Wayne in Europe, even though he kept phoning. That wasn't even in my radar. So, I basically lost my home, my job, my income, everything really. Sam came back from the hospital a totally different child. If I didn't know how he looked, I wouldn't have thought he was my child. Wayne had been trying to contact me, but obviously because we didn't have mobiles then, my home phone number wasn't being picked up because I wasn't there. He contacted my friend who introduced us. She did tell him because he knew something was wrong. He felt it in his gut. So he wanted to come home, and she said, no, please don't come home. It will then, and I didn't want him to come home. So he stayed pretty strict, but he did then come home around about the time of my 30th birthday in September. And we often say this, we don't know how, but we did get together when we come home, and we've been together ever since, but we don't quite know how. I felt very safe with him. We're good friends. We trust each other. We've had a lot of ups and downs, lots of downs. The impact of this, like financially, has had a massive impact on us. I mean, when we were sentenced to prison, Sam used to call Wayne Daddy. And then one day, while he was playing with his dinosaurs, he called him Wayne. He was so beautiful, so precious when that happened. Eventually was sentenced. I was told he'd get 10 years, but there were plea bargaining. He was sentenced to 3 years, and he did 18 months. Most of which, as his probation officer told me, was in an open prison where he got fit. I'm working with men and women, and sometimes children, who are lost, or who might be having some form of loss, or might have suffered stress, anxiety. So I've written 6 books, with the 7th book about men's mental health that hasn't been completed yet. That's had lots of issues around that book, actually. But the first book, awarded by Angel, shares a true story. Then the second book, Bringing You Back to You, are the basic tools and tips that I discovered and practice so naturally every day now to keep myself well. So I offer one-to-one mentoring programs, guidance sessions, and people feel safe with me, which is wonderful. Where they can just say things. And very often, when you're with someone you trust, and you can just say what your fears are out loud, you often then see a solution. So I'm a mentor as well as an author. The most wonderful thing about the work that I do is that I know people are still living today because I've either read a book or we've done some work together. And when they come to me, they've been in that dark place that I know very well.